Hey, what's up everybody, it's Yugo, and new year, new 2K. So usually I'm the guy that makes the builds every year. I see a lot of people that make builds, but none of them really seem to have tested the builds out to see if they actually work to begin with. I always make the builds that I believe were tested and are the best fit for each position. And with that being said, without further ado, let's begin with the build. I'm going to be making a build for every single position, just so that people that want to be a different position can be, whatever they want really. I never like choosing only one position and calling it a demigod, because a lot of people like being centers, a lot of people like being point guards, most people like being point guards, but there's some people that like being big men. So when we start off with point guard, when we go with archetype for point guards, you always want to take shot creator as the primary skill. That just gives you a balanced attributes with the shooting, the dunking, the layups, and basically balancing everything, except for of course rebounding, steals. But when you're a point guard, you won't really matter about that, and you're going to be getting those with the wingspan and the height and everything. So you really want to pick shot creator for the primary skill. Then the secondary skill, you want to pick driving and finishing. That just gives you a better athleticism, better boost to the hoop, and you're just better at layups, dunking, and whatever happens inside the paint. So those are the two attributes, or the two skills that you want to choose when you're picking for the point guard. Now with the height, this is really controversial for a lot of people, because if you go down, you're basically increasing your vertical, and as you can see, the ones that are turning green are the ones where you're improving. But the more you go up, the better you are at standing dunking, the better you are at more strength, the more rebounding, better box out. And generally you want to have more height, because you'll have a better advantage over the smaller point guard. So you always want to max out the height no matter what it is. So with this point guard build, we're going to go with 6'6". Now with the weight as well, you want to increase the weight to as high as possible, because that gives you a better physical advantage over the other players, especially when you're playing park. Physicality this year in the park is going to mean a whole lot more than it did before, because now you're going to be using a whole lot more body when you're driving to the hoop. So you always want to put your weight at the highest possible. And with wingspan, I always get flack every year for putting the wingspan as low as possible, but this year you can't really do it as high, like the highest or the lowest, because when you put it at the highest, look at your three-point shot, look at your mid-range, look at your ball control, all of it goes down. And then when you go at the lowest, your block, steals, contested shots, all those goes down as well. So you just want to keep it at even. Just keep it at 85.1, and just so that you don't lose any attributes when you're playing. So with wingspan, just keep it at medium. And that's basically the point guard build. You just click finish, and then you're basically done, and you're ready to play with your demigod point guard. So now we move on to shooting guard. With shooting guard, you're generally going to be asked to take open shots and drive to the hoop. So with 2K, if it was the real life, of course you'd take the three-point shot, because shooting guards generally are better when they're a better three-point shooter. But with 2K, you're going to want to be a better finisher at the hoop to begin with as your primary skill. So you're going to take driving and finishing as the primary skill with shooting guard. And then your secondary, you're going to want to put it at three-point shooting, because as I said, a shooting guard is always going to be asked to take the open shots and usually make them. So you always want to be open at the wing or wherever behind the arc. And whenever you catch, just catch and shoot, and that's basically one of the primary jobs of a shooting guard. So that's what you got to do with the archetypes and the secondary and primary skills. Now with the height, you want to do exactly what we do with the point guard, because whenever you increase the height to the most it can possibly be, the ones that you lose, you don't really lose that much attributes, but you gain so much more with the standing dunk, the box out, the rebounding, and you're going to need all that because of the lack of skill that you had with the archetypes that you picked. So you always want to increase your height to the maximum no matter what position it is. So with the height for shooting guard, we're picking 6'8". That is generally going to make it to what people call a demigod, and you're going to kind of be no match for other people in the park if they pick a smaller height. So you're going to be outweighing and rebounding, vertical jump, or whatever. You're going to be on top of everybody else when it comes to those type of assets. So now moving on to weight. With the weight, again, you want to max out the weight to the highest you can possibly make it. Because again, you lose less, but you gain so much more. You lose a little bit of acceleration and vertical, but you already picked the primary skill as driving and finishing, so you already have a high acceleration and high vertical. But what you don't have is the high contact dunk, the strength, the box out. So you gain so much more than you lose. So you always want to put the weight to the highest it can possibly be. And again, that's just going to make you outweigh everybody else, and you're not going to be a match for anyone, or everybody else is not going to be a match for you. So that's why you got to put the height to the highest you can possibly make it. And as for wingspan, again, we're going to keep it to the medium. You don't want to go any less, you don't want to go any higher, because it just ruins everything when you lower it. Because as you can see, you lose so much. You lose the block, you lose the steals, and you don't just lose them by a small margin, you lose them by a big margin. And when you increase it to the highest, you lose your 3-point shot, your mid-range shot, your ball control, and you definitely don't want to do that. So you always want to keep it at an even medium. So we're going to keep it at 87.2. And that's basically the shooting guard build. Now with the small forward, moving on to him, you're going to want to make the small forward as physical and as aggressive going to the basket as possible. So no matter what you do with the small forward, you always have to make the primary skill driving and finishing. Now with the secondary skill, you can have two options with this. You can either go with shot creating or 3-point shooting. I want to pick 3-point shooting because with 2K you always want to be a good 3-point shooter. As you can see with the 3-point shooting attribute, with shot creator you only have up to 7, but with the 3-point shooting you have all the way up to 12. So generally I always want to keep the 3-point shooting at least an average, so that I'm actually able to make 3-point shots. I don't want to be that guy that can't make a 3-point shot and just basically struggles from behind the arc. So I always pick 3-point shooting with the secondary skill. And that's how you make the archetype for the small forward. And with the height, again, you want to do the same thing that we've been doing for everyone else. Move the height to the highest it can possibly be. This is like the Giannis Antetokounmpo type height. Even though Giannis is a little bit taller, but you want to keep it as tall as possible. And you always want to have the height advantage over everyone else, or at least the same height, because a lot of people are going to pick the highest height anyways. So, but you always want to be the tallest person in the park. So pick 6'10" with the height. And with the weight, again, you want to pick the highest weight, just so that you can have a more physical advantage over the smaller people, and basically you can bully them around with the weight. So with the weight, you want to put it at 260, completely max it out. And again, with the wingspan, you want to keep the wingspan at an even medium, because you don't want to go too high and ruin your 3-point shooting, and you don't want to go too low and ruin your defensive and steals, blocks, and all that stuff. So you want to keep it at an even medium, which is 89.4, and that's the ending of the small forward build. Now moving on to the power forward. Now with power forward, you don't really want to make him a true 4, because the true 4s are really boring to play with in 2K. Now you also don't want to go completely as a stretch 4, because the stretch 4 it's just gonna be only shooting and not able to really destroy people or dominate people in the post. So you always want to keep the primary skill as what a true power forward is, which is driving and finishing. Now when we move on to the secondary skill, that's where you want to put the stretch 4 attributes in, which is 3-point shooting, because you want to be able to dominate people in the post, but also be able to shoot when you have an open shot in the wing. So you put the primary skill as driving and finishing, and secondary skill as 3-point shooting. Now with the height, it's a little different than before, because usually with the other ones we put them max height, but with this one you don't really want to max out, since it will kind of ruin your speed and acceleration and vertical. But you want to put it at 6'11", because the only thing that's going to be affecting is a little bit of the vertical, but you're going to be increasing a lot in the standing dunk and increasing in blocking and strength. So you want to put it at 6'11", so that you don't go too high and ruin your speed and your agility and all that stuff. And you don't want to go of course you don't want to go low. So 6'11" is the perfect height. And for weight, it's also the same as the height. We're not going to be doing it the same as every other build. We're going to go at around a mid to high amount of weight, which is 255, and that's just so that you don't ruin your acceleration completely when you go full, or your vertical, and you also don't ruin your speed and lateral quickness. So putting at 255, you increase the strength, box out, and contact dunk, without really ruining every other attribute. So the weight, you gotta keep it at 255 pounds. And with wingspan, since he is kind of a stretch 4 and a true 4, you don't want to ruin his 3-point shooting. So you want to keep it at an even medium 2, which is 90.5. And that's just so that we don't play around with other attributes. So keep it at the medium. Now with center, which is our final build, this is completely different from every other build, because with the center you want to make him as dominant as possible, like Shaq type of dominant. Because with Park, the center is always the guy that's in the paint, that's punishing the other little guys that are on the other end of the court. So with the center build, you want to make him as dominant and as big as possible. And with the primary and secondary skill, they're both going to be the same, which is driving and finishing. You want to keep both of them at driving and finishing because you keep the layups, dunks, and all that stuff at the highest. You also keep the vertical high, and you also have some speed and acceleration. But what's important is that you don't worry about shooting, because you're not going to be shooting as a center, especially in the park. You want to be down low and always just punishing the littler guys. So with the primary second skill, just keep it at driving and finishing. Now with the height, you want to go all the way up, because you don't really care about your speed or any of that stuff. Well, you kind of do care about the speed, but you don't care about it to the point where it's basically going to be the main focus of the build. Your main focus is being as big and dominant as possible. So with the height, you go to the maximum. And with the weight, you want to build up that strength. You want to be able to punish people down low, so you got to put it at the maximum as well, which is 290. So that way you're literally kind of Shaq right here. So you want to make the weight and everything basically as big as possible. So weight 290. And finally wingspan, we're also doing it different than every other build, because we don't care about the shooting with this one. So you just max out the wingspan as high as possible. We don't worry about the open shots. We don't worry about the ball control or mid-range or any of those type of shots. We only worry about being as big and as lanky as possible. So put it at 100.1, and that's your wingspan. And that's basically the center build. So that's it for all the builds. By the way, these are all tested. All of yesterday I was trying out all the builds with different accounts, and these are the best ones that I found and the best ones that worked, especially when you're playing in the park against other people. Because when you're building builds in the park, building builds with the intention of playing in the park, it's different than it is when you're building it with the intentions of playing with the computer. So with the park, you always want to have an abnormal build, which is why they call them demigods. And each one of these builds are the best you can possibly choose when it comes to the park. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. I will be making builds for certain players that you guys recommend, and I'll be doing all these within the month. So I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys in the next build.